It started like any other Monday morning. The hum of lockers slamming, the chatter of teenagers echoing down the halls, and the quiet dread of being new. She walked in wearing a black leather jacket, her long dark hair pulled back, her eyes calm but observant. No one knew her name, but they noticed the way she moved, quiet, deliberate, like someone used to being watched. The teachers whispered that she had transferred mid-semester, something about her family moving a lot. But behind that mystery, no one guessed who her father was or what she was capable of. Lunchtime rumors had already started. Some said she came from a military family. Others said she'd been expelled from her last school for fighting. When she sat alone at the far table, 3 popular kids walked past, laughing too loud. One of them bumped her tray, spilling milk across the table. She didn't flinch. She just looked up slowly, her eyes steady and unshaken. "Sorry," the boy said with a smirk. She wiped the table, silent, and kept eating. The others laughed. But the moment was noticed the way she didn't react, didn't even blink. To them, that calm looked weak. To her, it was control. What no one knew was that every morning before school, she trained not for popularity, but for peace. Her father had taught her that discipline was power, and that sometimes silence is the loudest response of all. That day, she went home bruised in spirit, but not broken. In her room, old photos lined the wall. Her father in martial arts tournaments, in movie sets holding her as a child. The world saw him as an action legend. She saw him as a man who taught her never to fight unless there was no other way. Her name was Mara Seagal. She had learned early to hide that last name. It came with expectations, with eyes that wanted to see proof of power. In her old schools, kids either idolized her or challenged her. Both felt wrong. All she wanted was to live quietly, without her father's shadow defining who she was. That night, as she unpacked the last of her boxers, she found a small note tucked in her duffel bag. In her father's handwriting, it read, "The world will test your calm more than your strength. Choose the right moment to show both." She smiled faintly. He always knew when she needed his voice, even from miles away on set. But peace didn't last. The next morning, her locker was covered in sticky notes. Martial arts Barbie, Karate Kid's sister, action princess. She peeled them off quietly, one by one. The same group of kids watched from the corner, their laughter echoing off the cold metal. By the 3rd week, the pranks grew crueler, tripping her in the hallway, mocking her accent when she quoted something philosophical her father once said. Still, she didn't react. It wasn't fear, it was patience. Her silence made them restless. Bullies feed on reaction, but she gave them none. Yet deep down something was shifting. Each insult, each shove was carving a slow fire inside her, not for revenge, but for truth. Every night, she trained harder, shadow boxing, practicing controlled breathing, meditation. Her father had always said, "You can't stop a storm by screaming at it. You stand, breathe, and wait for the wind to pass." She was trying, but this storm wasn't just wind. It was people, and people could be crueler than any hurricane. It happened on a rainy Thursday. The hall smelled of wet clothes and cheap perfume. Mara walked quietly, her hood up, trying to ignore the murmurs behind her. Then, as she turned the corner, she heard laughter. Sharp, cruel, familiar. 3 of the bullies were standing near the gym, phones out, whispering. One of them, Jason, the ringleader, grinned when he saw her. "Hey, Seagal," he said, mock bowing. "Show us some of those ninja moves your dad taught you." The others laughed. She ignored him, walked past, but Jason wasn't done. He stepped in front of her. "Come on," he said. "One little kick. You know you want this looked up. Erais calm. Walk away, Jason." He smirked. "Or what? You'll meditate me to death?" The laughter grew, and then it happened. One of the girls pushed her from behind, and Mara stumbled forward. Her knee hit the floor. Jason grabbed her backpack, yanking it away. She turned, stood slowly, her voice low but steady. "Give it back." He didn't. Instead, he tossed it across the hall, and when she reached for it, another kid tripped her. Phones were out now. Recordings. Hashtags forming before the bruise even set. Someone whispered, "This is going viral." When she finally stood, her face was calm, her breathing even. She said nothing. She just looked at each of them, not with anger, but with something colder. Later that night, the video hit the internet. Steven Seagal's daughter gets bullied. Millions watched it within hours. The comments were brutal, half mocking, half defending. And for the first time, Mara wished she really wasn't her father's daughter. By morning, her name was trending. Reporters camped outside the school gates. YouTube commentators speculated about her mystery identity. Memes flooded social media, some cruel, some sympathetic, but the damage was done. Her father's PR team called her mother first. "Keep her quiet," they said. "No interviews, no statements." Her mother agreed, but Mara didn't. "Why should I be silent?" she asked. "They humiliated me. I didn't do anything wrong." Her father called that night. His voice was calm, almost too calm. "You did the right thing," he said. "You didn't fight." She hesitated, "But everyone's laughing." He paused, then said softly, "They laughed at me, too, once, until..." They stopped. The next day she went back to school. The same halls, the same faces. But something had changed. When Jason saw her, he grinned nervously. "Hey, no hard feelings, right? Internet's crazy." She looked at him, not angry, not smiling. "You started something you can't control," she said. That afternoon, a car pulled up outside the school. Black, tinted windows. The bullies froze as a tall man stepped out, his presence heavy even from a distance. It was Steven Seagal himself. He didn't speak to them. He just opened the door for his daughter, nodded once, and they drove away. By the next morning, every news outlet had a headline: "Steven Seagal's daughter bullied at school. Father responds in silence." The internet exploded again, this time, not with laughter, but with guilt. The world had found its villain, and it wasn't Mara. The school board held emergency meetings. Apologies were made, cameras banned, statements drafted. Jason and his friends were suspended. Their parents paraded in front of microphones. But the real punishment wasn't from the school. It was from the internet. Overnight, the bullies became public enemies. Their social media flooded with hate, anonymous threats, lost scholarships, even their part-time jobs called them liabilities. The video they thought would make them popular had destroyed their lives. Meanwhile, Mara stayed silent. She refused interviews, ignored reporters, and focused on her training again. Her father flew back to set, leaving her with one final message. Forgive, but don't forget. But forgiveness wasn't easy. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that moment, the laughter, the shove, the fall. She'd replay it in her mind, wondering if she could have done something different. Yet, deep down, she knew, had she fought back, the headlines would be banned. The world doesn't forgive strong women easily, especially daughters of legends. So, she turned inward. Meditation, breathing, training. Each movement was a quiet rebellion against the chaos outside. The internet moved on eventually, as it always does, but scars remained unseen beneath the calm. 2 months later, Jason showed up at her door. His eyes were hollow, his voice small. "I came to apologize," he said. "You don't have to forgive me. I just didn't know." She looked at him, silent. "Didn't know what?" "That you were his daughter," he said. "We wouldn't have," she cut him off gently. "You would do," she said, "because you didn't hurt me because of who I am. You hurt me because you could." He lowered his head. She didn't slam the door. She just stepped aside and let him speak. He told her about the hate, the messages, the fear. "It's like everyone hates me now," he said. She nodded slowly. "That's what happens when you build your peace on someone else's pain," he cried. She didn't. When he left, she felt no triumph. Just clarity. People change, but consequences stay. That night, she lit a candle beside her father's photo. "You were right," she whispered. "Control is harder than power." A year later, Mara was different, calmer, stronger, known, but not for her father's name. She had joined a youth martial arts foundation, teaching kids about discipline and respect. Her story had inspired thousands, though she never told it herself. One evening, she was invited to a live talk show. At first, she refused, but then the host said, "It's not about your father, it's about you." Under soft lights she spoke, not as Steven Seagal's daughter, but as a girl who survived public humiliation and found peace in silence. "I learned," she said, "that strength isn't about striking back. It's about standing your ground without hate." The clip went viral again, but this time it wasn't for drama. It was for grace. The same world that mocked her now called her a symbol of restraint. And somewhere, watching quietly from a movie set, her father smiled. Months later, Mara's foundation hosted an event, a self-defense program for young girls. Reporters came. Cameras rolled. But one face stood out in the crowd, Jason. He volunteered, quietly, avoiding attention. After the session, he approached her. "You saved me?" he said simply. "When everyone hated me, you didn't." She smiled, faintly. "You save yourself." They shook hands, not as enemies, but as people who had finally learned the cost of cruelty and the value of calm. That night, as she drove home, the city lights reflected in her rearview mirror like flickers of old pain finally fading. Her father called. "You did good," he said. "Just following your advice," she replied. He laughed softly. "You've gone beyond that, kid. You've found your own way." Years passed. Bazet, the video faded into internet history, replaced by newer scandals, newer laughs, but for those who remembered, it carried a lesson. Mara never capitalized on it, never wrote a book, never sold her story. She built something quieter, a space for those who'd been humiliated, silenced, mocked. She taught them how to breathe, how to wait, how to rise. Strength, she'd tell her students, isn't about fighting, it's about knowing when not to. Sometimes, during interviews, people would still mention her father. "What's it like being Steven Seagal's daughter?" She'd smile politely. "It's like being the daughter of a man who taught me silence can be louder than violence." And that was all she needed to say. Late one night, after teaching her final class of the week, Mara walked alone to the empty door. The mirrors reflected her calm, centered, whole. For a moment, she thought of that first day at school. The laughter, the spilled milk, the silence. Then she whispered to her reflection, "You were never weak. You were waiting." Outside, rain began to fall, soft, cleansing. Somewhere far away, in a quiet house filled with old movie posters, Steven Seagal watched a recording of his daughter's speech on television, his eyes soft, his voice barely a whisper. "You didn't just learn from me, you surpassed me." And so, the story that began with cruelty ended with peace, a father's lesson, a daughter's strength, and a reminder to the world. Never mistake silence for weakness, because sometimes the quiet ones carry the loudest power of all.